Rain poured relentlessly over the small cafe windows, painting them in streaks of silver and gray. Inside, the hum of soft jazz played beneath the clinking of coffee cups and the rustle of newspapers. Emily Carter sat alone at a corner table, her trembling hands wrapped around a cup of untouched latte. Her eyes were distant, tired from the storm outside and the storm she carried within. Life had not been kind lately. A broken engagement, a job lost, and a quiet ache of loneliness had hollowed her days into something colorless. She had come to that cafe simply to escape, to hide behind the smell of coffee and the noise of strangers. But fate, as it often does, had other plans that day. If you believe in kindness, destiny, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories, because sometimes the wrong turn leads you exactly where you need to be. Emily had chosen the small cafe on Fifth Avenue in Portland, Oregon, a place she'd never been before. She walked in soaked from the rain, barely glancing at the number on the little wooden sign that said Table 7. She thought it didn't matter. But that one small mistake, the table she chose, was about to change her entire life. She sat at the wrong table. A simple mix-up. Someone else had apparently reserved it for a business meeting. She didn't know that yet. All she wanted was warmth, a quiet moment, maybe a bite of blueberry muffin to fill the emptiness that had grown too loud inside her chest. She scrolled through her phone, her ex-fiancé's smiling face still showing up in her photo gallery. She sighed, pressing the screen off, her throat tightening. It had been 6 months since he left. 6 months since she'd stopped believing in love altogether. Then she heard a voice, deep, polite, and slightly uncertain. "Excuse me, are you?" Emily, startled. She looked up. A tall man in a gray coat stood before her, his hair damp from the rain. He looked just as confused as she was. "Yes, I'm Emily," she said hesitantly. He smiled and sat down across from her, setting down his laptop bag. "Perfect," he said. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show up today. I've been meaning to discuss the proposal for our design collaboration." Emily blinked. Proposal? Design collaboration? They stared at each other for a few awkward seconds before realization dawned on both their faces. The man frowned, then glanced at the little sign on the table. "Oh," he said, chuckling. "This is Table 7. I was supposed to meet Emily Sanders. You're not her, are you?" Emily felt her face flush. "No, I'm definitely not." She laughed nervously, mortified. "I must have taken a wrong seat. I'm so sorry." But the man only smiled warmly. "No harm done. Honest mistake. It's pouring outside. You're welcome to stay until your table's free. I could use some company anyway." Something about his voice, calm, kind, unhurried, made her pause. He introduced himself as Ryan Cooper, an architect working on a charity housing project. His meeting partner hadn't shown up yet. So, they sat there, two strangers, one mistaken table, and began to talk. At first, it was small talk about the weather, the coffee, the chaos of city life. But then, slowly, conversation deepened. She told him about her passion for art, how she used to paint before everything fell apart. He spoke about losing his father, about finding meaning in building homes for others. There was a gentle honesty in his words, a kind of quiet strength Emily hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. Minutes turned into an hour. Outside, the rain eased. Inside, something within her heart began to stir again. She smiled genuinely for the first time in months. She laughed, even softly, like a sound she'd forgotten belonged to her. When his actual meeting partner, Emily Sanders, finally arrived, Ryan apologized, explaining the mix-up. But before the real meeting began, he turned to the wrong Emily, the right Emily, as fate would prove, and said, "I'm really glad you sat here today." Those words lingered with her long after she left the cafe. Over the next few weeks, Emily couldn't stop thinking about that encounter. It had felt effortless, like breathing after holding it in too long. Then one morning, her phone buzzed with a new email from Ryan. "Hey," it said simply, "I found your sketchbook. You left it at the cafe that day. Want to meet for coffee again?" She didn't even remember leaving it there. But perhaps, deep down, some part of her had wanted a reason to see him again. They met again at the same cafe, this time at the right table. The rain had stopped, and sunlight spilled through the windows, catching in the curls of steam above their cups. Conversation flowed as easily as before. Ryan admired her art, encouraging her to pick up painting again. "You've got a gift," he said. "Don't let heartbreak steal that from you." For weeks that turned into months, they kept meeting, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks through the park or long drives outside the city. Emily began to paint again, her brush dancing with color she thought she'd lost forever. Ryan, in turn, found himself inspired too. His architectural designs took on warmth and emotion they'd never had before. But love, even when it arrives gently, comes with its own tests. One evening, Ryan received a call. His mother had been diagnosed with cancer. He was shaken, afraid, and uncertain. He began to pull away, overwhelmed by grief and responsibility. Emily, remembering how her ex had left her when she had been at her lowest, feared she was losing Ryan too. For days, she didn't hear from him. The silence was deafening. She told herself not to care, not to hope, but her heart betrayed her. Then, one rainy night, she found herself outside his apartment building, soaked, trembling, holding a small painting she'd made for him. It was a portrait of the cafe where they first met, with 2 chairs at table 7. He opened the door, surprised to see her. His eyes were red from crying. She didn't say much, just held out the painting and whispered, "You're not alone, Ryan. You don't have to go through this by yourself." That night changed everything. In the months that followed, Emily became his quiet support, visiting the hospital with him, bringing homemade soup for his mother, painting small canvases to brighten the sterile walls of the ward. Through the pain, they found deeper connection, one built not on romance, but on understanding, on shared strength, on showing up when life was at its hardest. Ryan's mother recovered slowly, and the day she was discharged, she hugged Emily with tears in her eyes. "He's been smiling again because of you," she whispered. By then, everyone around them could see it, the bond, the unspoken love. But Emily, still cautious, didn't dare hope too much. Until one late afternoon, at that same cafe where it had all begun, Ryan placed a small wooden box on the table. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a paintbrush. He said quietly, "I used to think the world worked in straight lines, plans, designs, structures. But then you came along, sat at the wrong table, and showed me that sometimes the most beautiful things begin by accident." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Emily, you didn't just walk into my life, you changed it. You made me believe again." Tears filled her eyes as she realized that fate had truly played its hand that day. What had started as a mistake became the miracle she didn't know she needed. They didn't rush into marriage or grand promises. Instead, they built a quiet, steady love, a partnership rooted in friendship, compassion, and shared dreams. Emily started her own art studio, with Ryan helping her design the space. On opening day, as she cut the ribbon, she saw him standing at the back, holding up a sign that read, "Table 7 Forever." And she smiled, because she knew she had finally found home. Years later, people often asked Emily how she met her husband. She always laughed softly and said, "I sat at the wrong table." But in her heart, she knew there had never been anything wrong about that moment. It had been destiny in disguise, a small mistake crafted by fate to bring 2 broken souls together so they could heal each other. Sometimes, life doesn't give you what you ask for. It gives you what you need, and often that comes wrapped in coincidence, confusion, or a simple act like sitting down in the wrong place at the right time. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories, because you never know whose heart your kindness might reach today. Speech balloon special request. Comment below. I believe in second chances. Let's fill the world with hope, one story at a time.